Welcome back to the Calldrip Connection. I'm Forrest, and today I'm joined by someone who knows a thing or two about real conversations, my friend and colleague, Koby Jackson. Today's topic is one I'm pretty passionate about, and it's the power of personal human connection. So we've talked a lot about AI and automations over the last couple of sessions, but let's be honest. I mean, nothing replaces that first human moment on the phone, whether it's the tone, the warmth, the genuine interest. It really matters. So today we're going to talk about how powerful that first impression is and how word tracks can build trust, and then how we use AI to help support, not replace, the human connection. So Koby, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the invite. I've been watching your Calldrip Connection clips for some time now and was looking forward to being on the show. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, before we jump into this week's topic, for those that don't know, Koby's the founder of Calldrip. So just a couple of questions. I mean, why telephony? Why technology? Like, what's your background? How did you get into this space?
Yeah, so in the early 2000s, dates me a little bit, but in the early 2000s, I've always had a passion for technology. In the early 2000s, started exploring different kinds of technologies. I ran a healthcare software company for a number of years and started looking at telephony in terms of scheduling appointments and reaching out to patients to confirm appointments. And really what we were doing was trying to create efficiencies inside of hospitals and clinics and physician or family practices. So from that, just started learning a lot about technology and telephony, and we springboarded and started a platform that allowed us to do robo-dialing or calling. So we created a call platform, an initial call platform. And the team that we had assembled that came forward into Calldrip, their biggest number one complaint was that we have to have people sitting in front of a screen, in front of a dialer, and we have to change this whole methodology if we want to be able to really help and move the needle for our customers. So concepts were born and created and tested where we replaced having to be in front of a computer screen, using telephony and technologies to get in front of a cell phone and respond to leads. So from that, it just kind of went one step after another step. And what we found was that I would say by accident, a lot of what we found was by accident we just learned it through data, through results. But initially we ran a power dialer, and the power dialer, you had to sit in front of the dialing station and robocall. And we robocalled, the goal was to call about 200 dials an hour, and which is very monotonous and it's hard to do. And you have to ask salespeople to sit in front of a computer screen. And by shifting that dynamic and moving it from a computer screen to a cell phone and letting the dialer dial and work, it would only connect a live person to your cell phone. So you didn't have to sit in front of the dialer. So if it was a voicemail, it deployed voicemails and left a voicemail and kept all of the stats. But once we got a live person, it would ring the salesperson and connect the two of them. And in those days, today we all recognize when you answer the phone and you say, hello, 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 it's spam or it's a robocall or, it's some kind of a sales-oriented call, and the first thing you do is click and hang up. We had to change that. So what we ended up doing was through a series of technologies and tricks, we made sure the salesman was on the telephone first. So they were on their mobile phone, so it made the connections easier. And we just continued to learn and evolve. But what we learned, what we knew, what we set out to do was to connect to people quickly, right? And through the process, when we were acquiring leads for our dialer, we had live web forms that customers would go out and request information. And when they'd request information, we always knew it was live or it was hot, right? And those were clearly the very, very best leads possible. And we learned that the sooner you connected to those people, the better results you had. So it was obvious we needed to be able to make sure that we always had live, real-time connections, real-time customers making inquiries, raising their hand online saying, I'd like to speak to a salesman. So we took that methodology and just built and expanded it. So we knew that connecting instantly create a huge, huge impact on the results of the leads, the quality of leads. What we didn't know, which was a result of a lot of data, what we learned is that the impact to the customer emotional connection, and the rapport that was developed by connecting instantly where customers didn't have to wait online, that was really the biggest win. So not only do we connect with people quickly, We learned that we connected with more people because we connected on their schedule, on their timetable. And then that human connection dynamically changed everything. And from there, we listened to customers and we just grew and expanded. So it was an exciting time. And, I would just add one thing to that, um, startup phase. We purposefully didn't go out and look for capital. We had a methodology of bootstrapping. And the reason we did is because we wanted to do bite sizes. We wanted to make sure that we were effective in acquiring customers and we could deliver an ROI or deliver a tool, a platform that really produced results. And the biggest fear among the team at that time was if we brought in investor capital or we brought in capital from outside of our organization, that it would change our direction and our dynamic. We'd all of a sudden have to serve two masters, one being the investors who put money in, and second being the customer. And we didn't ever want to put our customers second. So we avoided the high capitalization so we could actually grow and expand the tool. So by just doing bite sizes and getting customer feedback, we were able to create a platform and a tool that is absolutely second to none. I just sent a tweet earlier this morning that said, I put my money where my mouth is. There's not another product or platform on the market that even come close to what we do. And I stand behind that. It's just incredibly powerful stuff.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that background. And I do know, I've been involved for a long time with a lot of the processes, dating back close to 20 years from some of the first stuff. And we were doing a lot of hardware as well back in the beginning. And that's where most of both of our gray came from.
My first call was to you, Forrest. My first call was to you. Of course, you were the GM of a store. And I immediately called you and said, hey, what happens if we take the power dialer, which you knew we were doing power dialer, but what if we take the power dialer out of it, move it to a mobile phone, and just give you real-time leads? And at the time, we were trying to figure out how do we get real-time leads? We didn't think about connecting all the lead sources that were already out there. So, and I remember bringing that to you, and you said, skipping some of the vulgarity, you said, I'll quit this job tomorrow. Let's do this thing. That's kind of where we ended up. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, for sure. And the platform has, it doesn't even look the same today. Obviously the functionality, a lot of things we talk about with AI and now SMS and texting and having virtual assistants and scorecards and everything that we do now is just a complete game changer to those early days, but it's been a fun ride. So let's shift gears here a little bit and let's start with that first moment on a phone call. Let's talk about the first 10 seconds when you use this technology, you connect with a customer. Koby, what have you seen over the years that really creates that wow factor with sales calls?
Well, there's no question about it, Forrest, that the number one factor is that human connection or that connection, the rapport that's established or developed immediately with that customer or that prospective customer. You've demonstrated that you care. You've demonstrated that you're putting them first in terms of priority. That customer's not sitting on hold, not waiting. You've responded to their inquiry instantly, and you start the entire sales process off on the right foot. I don't think you're going to get that from any other process. And today, as fast as humans are, they're not humanly capable with everything we have going on in our lives. They're not humanly capable of being able to get the lead, decipher the lead, make the telephone call, and make a connection. By the time that the fastest people do that, it's 5 minutes. And we know based on data that at 5 minutes, consumers are gone. To put it into perspective, imagine going into a showroom, looking at a vehicle, raising your hand, standing in the showroom and stand there for 5 minutes, you would be gone. No one today is going to wait 5 minutes. It's just incredible poor customer service. So we eliminated that process and connected immediately.
Yeah, excellent. And I think back on some of the most memorable calls over the years. There's been, in the millions right now at this point.
Yeah.
But really the thing that I notice is the confidence of the salesperson, not being arrogant or cocky or anything, but there's intention on the call. So, it's not necessarily a script. It's more of like a strategic word track. And when we listen to people that are good on the phone, it's like almost brings tears to my eyes. It's so fun. And, I think back to calls I've had with companies like T-Mobile and Delta, for example. When you're talking to people that are extremely scripted, you can tell. And, I just recently had a situation with incredible customer service from T-Mobile, which is different than all the years past. I dreaded ever calling them. And I think I told you about that conversation, but they got on the phone. They asked me, they cared about what was going on. They wanted to identify what the call was for. And I knew that they had a path that they were on or a direction, but it didn't feel scripted or, it wasn't hard to understand them. So it's just a game changer in that customer experience. I mean, my whole perception of T-Mobile now, I kind of just want to call them and say, hey, what's up? Right? It's just a fun experience.
Forrest, one of the things that I've noticed, and especially with T-Mobile, and you did call and talk to me about that experience you had, which is phenomenal. If you think back in years past, really what happens is you didn't have that connection. So you made a connection with them. You felt heard. They resolved your issues. They took care of, the reason you called. They didn't waste your time. And you did everything in a timely manner. So you felt like it was valuable time spent. And that's one of the biggest problems we have today. But you look at what's dynamically changed in the last couple of years, and especially today, we see so many products coming on the market that are trying to focus and trying to drive AI conversations and trying to move customers to AI, touting that it's a better customer service experience. And it's just not. It's just not. And I think one of the things that you identified with T-Mobile is that you had a human connection. You were dealing with humans. And hopefully, and most likely, they were using AI technology, as we do here at Calldrip, to enhance the experience in the background. It's feeding them information. It's making sure it's keeping on track. It's helping with follow-ups. It's helping them do better job with the jobs that they have, the job they have at hand, and that is dealing with their customers. So yeah. I think that the best utilization of AI and technologies today, like we do at Calldrip, is the winning combination. But the people that are going to lose, and the products that are going to lose, are those that are leaning heavily on AI. It's just a major mistake, and we see it every day.
Yeah, for sure. And you definitely, when you get on the phone, you want that human connection. You don't want it to feel robotic. You don't want it to sound canned or scripted. You lose the personality and you lose that good customer experience. So yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit into the game plan. So talking about structures of calls, I mean, we know that the best calls have purpose. They're headed somewhere. What do you think makes a strong structure on a phone call? Just with what you've heard.
Yeah, so my answer might be just a little bit outside of the box, because there's clearly, I mean, obviously you said it earlier, we have millions and millions and millions of calls, and we listen to so many calls, and our system's categorizing, organizing calls and breaking down the conversations by key components. We have the data, and there's clearly certain things that, if they're set on a telephone conversation, produce better results. No question about that. But one of the things that's interesting to me is that depending on how the customer comes into us. So for example, if they came in through a specific inquiry or a type of inquiry, I'll give you an example. Let's say that it's a service type inquiry, or an inquiry that goes out that elicits the customer's interaction. When the customer comes into the organization or into the through the Calldrip platform and connects with a salesperson, that conversation is a little bit unique and a little bit different. It's not exactly the same as a generic lead, right? So right. Those conversation types and those key components are different. And so one of the fun things that we're doing today at Calldrip is breaking down those conversations, identifying the key conversational points that make a difference based on the lead type and based on the reason the customer called in, whether it's service, parts, sales, the type of sales call. So it's really, really unique. And I think when we first launched and we first started identifying and breaking down the data elements of a call, we had an idea of this is what it's going to look like and this is how it's going to be. And it's just changed. It's changed dramatically. And every single day when we look at data, the data started to shape and mold, and it just becomes different based on that consumer's needs and wants. So there's a big push in the industry to know as much about the consumer and why they approached us, and as much information as we possibly could gather before you ever have the conversation. For example, past history, past buying history. There's so many things that are critically important. So to answer your question, I would really say that every single call is unique. There's definitely patterns in general calls on general leads, but where you really distinguish yourself from your competition is when you're able to dial in your conversations that are very, very unique and very personal to that consumer. That's when you see real results.
Yeah, true. And we work with a lot of stores that have a lot of structure on their calls in the different departments. And, we have call coaches that use our platform to, listen to those recordings and to give training. And it's fun when it doesn't sound scripted. If they know where they're going with the conversation, it's amazing. So I absolutely love it. One of the things that is probably one of my favorite things that I've learned over the years that I wanted to stay away from completely, but the data supports and backs up that when people ask a personal question like about someone's trade-in, that consumer gets way more engaged and the phone call really turns. And we see appointment sets really climb from that. So, one of the it seems really simple, and it is simple, but one of the things that I love when talking about trade is not saying something like, do you have a trade-in? Are you going to be trading a vehicle? What I love is, what are you currently driving? It's the same thing that leads into it. And I know it's giving me a path to start talking about their vehicle, to express interest and really care about that consumer. And it starts that emotional connection and just makes the whole conversation a lot better. So,
when you look at the data, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you look at the data on those calls and you see what happens, you're exactly right. And it's amazing. But just that question alone, it elicits a personal connection with the customer. When you say that to me, I'm like, oh, he cares about what I drive. What I drive is very personal to me, and it represents me. Right. And so you're absolutely right. And I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. I would ask you what you drive, but it depends on what day of the week it is.
Yeah. Today I'm playing cowboy. I'm driving a truck.
Oh, nice. What kind of truck is it?
It's a Ford 250, a Super Duty.
Nice. Yeah. And just things like that. So, it's great to ask questions, make statements, and then ask a question, right? So an example of like another great statement is, saying that's a great choice. I love those F-250s. What year is it? How long have you had it? Just simple things like that. So having the structure, but not necessarily feeling scripted, is something that we see with all the calls that we listen to that really make a difference in conversion. So just so people don't get confused, and they think that AI is trying to replace people, it's not, especially with the Calldrip platform. AI creates a space for people to have better conversations and to take that data and really analyze it and decipher what works, what isn't working, who on my team is doing a great job, what can we learn from them, and who might need some additional training.
Yeah. Forrest, it's interesting you say that. And we have purposefully, and we really had great intention to make sure that we didn't put AI first inside of our technology or our platform. Salespeople come first, always. Our customers come first. And we've used AI very effectively to be able to enhance those conversations, be able to enhance the outcomes, and enhance the salesperson's ability to communicate with the customer. But probably one of the best things that we have done. We've done a lot of great things with AI, but in my opinion, one of the very best things we have done is in our texting platform. When we're doing follow-up and outreach, the salespeople are engaged in that message, in that conversation. Not only are they looking at it on their telephones and watching the AI conversation or communicate, but they can jump in and take over that conversation anytime they want, hand it back and forth. It's literally a three-way conversation using a trained automotive technology, automotive AI virtual assistant to communicate with the customer that knows everything about the customer, knows everything about the stores, knows everything about the product. So it's very, very helpful. But the salesperson's still there and engaged in that conversation. That's unlike anything else that I've seen in the industry today. And it's very, very important. We put people first, not technology.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's fun to watch those conversations. And, we know just from the volume of leads that we see, volume of calls, as high as 30% of every lead. So a little bit higher than that actually come in after hours. And as a customer experience, if a call center or BDC shuts down at 6 p.m. at night, which a lot do, a lot of people that are shopping for vehicles or whatever the case may be, shopping for any product, they're working, they're commuting, they're doing things till after 6. So their chance to really reach out sometimes in the evening. And the thing that I love about what we've done with the inbox and the the virtual assistants is, initiating that message so it keeps the lead warm, but doesn't, end with the virtual assistant. Like you said, anyone can jump in at any time. Even though the store's closed, we have stores that, there's salespeople getting in, responding to messages after hours, before hours, maybe even during the day when they missed an opportunity. So let's talk about a little bit more of some of the changes that AI's let us do with this particular subject of keeping the human element. We used to have humans that listened to calls for dealers. I mean,
Yeah.
It was useful, but pretty inconsistent. Now that AI handles the call monitoring and scoring, and even provides some coaching triggers and tips, it helps all of our customers know on a light training side what potentially could have been better on that phone call. What are some of your thoughts around that? And especially now that we've implemented the multiple scorecards where it's not just one set of KPIs. We don't just have KPIs for a sales team or something that's generic. It can be customized per location and per department. So in that, I mean, what are some of the huge advantages that you've seen with AI going through multiple scorecards?
So we don't even have time on this podcast to even talk about all of the things that we've seen and all the data elements and everything that we identify as an organization and what we're trying to expand on. But probably as we bring it up, the number one thing that really stands out and comes to my mind is if our customers are already using a call coach, using our technology with that existing call coach, their results are 10 times what they ever would have been before. So what I mean by that is a coach in the past would take a spectrum, just a fine line of calls that happened or went through the dealerships or through their customers, and they would identify, review those calls, and then provide feedback on them. You're just grabbing a small spectrum of the conversations that happen within inside of the dealership. What our technology allows to happen today is we listen to every single call, and based on our criteria, our AI sorting those conversations and putting them in certain buckets. The buckets can be used in a lot of different ways with inside of the Calldrip platform. But the number one way that I see that's really creates a lift with call coaches today is that they take those buckets and they know exactly what calls they want to work on, what they need to work on. They identify exactly the conversations, and we're no longer listening to generic conversations or just throwing a dart at a bullseye or throwing a dart hoping that it hits a bullseye. Now we're able to dial in and get them very specific. So we're making our call coaching partners 10 times, I would even go out and venture to say 100 times more effective than they ever were before. Yeah. And then our AI and our platform is continually reminding the coaches, here's calls that you really should identify and work on. These people need help. So we're just facilitating what they're doing, making the coaching better. And when you combine that with the Calldrip platform, it's a winning combination.
Yeah, for sure. And a couple of things kind of around that. We work with a lot of call coaches that, especially over the years, and you think about their training methodology, some things that they thought were effective 5, 10, 15 years ago, that they've been teaching and they still preach today aren't necessarily what really changes the conversion. And trade-in being one of those that we already talked about. I was trained and taught, went through multiple different phone skills training courses, and trade was never something that I was taught to bring up. But strictly the data, and especially what AI has been able to spit back to us, to let us know that that's one of the biggest contributing factors to an appointment, as high as 50% higher appointment sets when a trade gets mentioned or brought up. So it's just really cool. And then the other thing with like multiple scorecards that I've noticed recently, which we're working with a OEM outside of the automotive space, still pretty much the same, but we set up a scorecard for the parts department. And on that, one of the things that came up was, are they mentioning the benefit of an OEM part versus, an aftermarket part they could go to O'Reilly's or AutoZone or something and buy. And when OEM benefit comes up on the phone calls, the appointment sets are literally 3 times higher, which, is just crazy to see. But it stresses the importance of, training, coaching, that human element, the human actually having a game plan and a roadmap, knowing that they should talk about the benefits of an OEM part. Because a lot of times, the phone skills coaches aren't talking about necessarily things like that have been surfaced by AI.
Yeah. Our OEM customers today would never know what's happening in the conversations in the field. They would never be able to identify exactly what you just identified. And those are unique. And they're unique by channel and where that consumer came from. So there's a lot of things like that happen. So it's really revolutionized the entire game, and it's put the control back in our customers' hands, the sales organization's hands, to be able to provide the very best customer service and the very best experience to those consumers humanly possible. And I say humanly because that's what we need, is human connections.
Yeah, for sure. So as we kind of start to wrap up and think about what we've been talking about today, I don't ever foresee AI completely replacing the human ever. I just don't think it's even possible, right? So what we're implementing and what we're doing is to just enhance training, identify data points that are going to be helpful for those humans that are, have word tracks, scripts, things like that, to help them really dial that message in. So, if someone's thinking about trying to get started with us or with Calldrip, or get more, actively involved in monitoring calls at their business, where do they start? Like what would you say would be the best thing for them to start with?
Well, so it's kind of a loaded question because, of course, I'm going to answer you visit calldrip.com, right? I mean, you start with calldrip.com. We have a lot of good resources online. But let me tell you this. We have a lot of people inside of our organization who truly care, and they really want to see our customers improve and prospective customers improve. We do a lot of calls. In fact, I believe we do a monthly call today where anyone can join that call and just learn about how AI enhances the salesperson's performance. And I would tell you this personally, I've doubled my performance. I've doubled the quality of the performance that I provide because of AI enhancements. And I would never let AI run or drive that for me because it's not authentic, and I'll lose that human connection, the connection that I want to have with prospective customers and friends. So it just doubles that. And so I think calldrip.com is a great place to get started. There's a lot of resources out there. But unfortunately, AI is such a buzzword today that everyone's looking to replace. There's all of these. I hear that the software developers will be replaced ultimately. We just don't see that as an organization. We want to keep humans first, and we want to be able to improve their productivity and improve their performance and improve the customer service experience. But I would never allow a bot to take over that human connection experience. It just can't happen. So I concur with you. It's the next couple of years are going to be fantastic. It's a fantastic outlook for Calldrip, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, same. I've renewed energy after 15 years of talking Calldrip, speed of response, and being able to add some other things in there. It's been a breath of fresh air, and it's exciting technology. And but I'm with you. I don't see it really replacing the human. And on that, I would say, stay sharp, stay human. Thanks for tuning into this session of the Calldrip Connection, and we'll catch you next month when we have a different topic to talk about. I appreciate your time today, Koby. And
thank you. I hope you invite me back.
Yeah. Well, we definitely spent enough time on the phone back and forth that we could just do it on here.
That's true. Good point. All right. Thanks, Forrest. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.